What do you all think of the new thumbnail design? You'll have hopefully noticed that I've been trying to rebrand over the last few weeks with new motion graphics, but I'd say this is the most major one yet. It provides me with even more space than the last design did for a main focal point, has a more dynamic design with the slanted rectangles, and fits better with the rest of the rebrand. But it does have less space for titles, which could become a problem in the future, so comment whether you prefer this template or the older one. Now I've stopped geeking off about graphic design though, let's get into the next episode of this Sonic Mania playthrough. It's been a while since the last Sonic Mania episode, and no one's really watched them either, so let me do a quick recap of what's happened. If you've played Mania, which I'm sure most of you have, you'll know that it centres around the Phantom Ruby, which was uncovered in the prologue cutscene. Since then, Sonic and Tails have ran across Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and the nighttime city of Studiopolis to get it out of the clutches of Eggman and the hard-boiled heavies, which has led them to their current situation, standing on one of the outdoor balconies of Flying Battery. We don't waste time staring at the view though, we have a Mad Dr. Katz, and he's clearly not here. Taking one of these boosters, which I'm fairly certain are based off of those used to launch planes from aircraft carriers, I entered the main body of the vessel, fight some enemies, and catch some monkey bars, before immediately leaving the ship again. Clearly, now I was more curious about what was below us, because during this extremely, offensively easy bit of platforming, I still managed to hit my head and plummet back down to Earth. Or the 10 or so meters into the death boundary, anyway. Therefore, rinse and repeat that earlier section, before being slightly more cautious about platforming over a death bit, before embracing the safety of a floor once more. Once here, I take the uppermost path mostly by accident, before entering a magnetised area and picking up a lightning shield. It does not last long. I remember the magnetised ceilings being significantly less noisy on console than PC, as it really begins to get annoying hearing this loud, ear-piercing hum that's made up of a sound by less than a second long for any length of time. But then, we're back outside, only this time on the top of Flying Battery, swinging between the rotors and propellers to keep it airborne. I somehow managed to get damage hitting the side of some spikes. This will definitely hamper my cool score at the end of this act, considering how I keep getting hit, and try to do some exploring above the propellers, but having lost my electric shield, I'm rebuffed and forced to take the normal path. Ugh. Then, it's just a cavalcade of time-wasting mistakes on my end. I used Tails to take another path over dropping down, but waste any time I may have saved with poorly timed drop dashes, and a lack of speed causing me to drop down to the bottommost path anyway, or at least get some minor consolation with a free invincibility monitor to charge through some badniks. It doesn't do much when I then get stuck at this section, which I swear normally comes earlier in the act, and then I keep trying to go up to paths which are actually slower than the normal route, so just all around a bad time. The damage keeps piling up when I actually reach the top path again, only to get hit by this techno squeak when grabbing onto a monkey bar, then getting caught in a mine explosion while opening a door. The only consolation to this train wreck of poorly timed jumps and constant knocks is that I do end up with another electric shield, which I managed to keep until facing the Flying Battery mini-boss, the Big Squeeze. The intended strategy for this fight is that you kill some time defeating the scrap-built badniks the trash compactor sends to fight you, to let the rubbish pile enough to start fighting the main enemy, which is ultimately left defenseless. Not a particularly difficult fight to begin with, seeing as the only real danger comes from the slowly encroaching walls of the compactor, but the time they give you to take down the magnet factory thing is so generous you really never need to worry about being crushed. Of course, if you get here while still keeping hold of an electric shield, well, that whole strategy goes out of the window, as you can just double jump and hit it straight away. In other words, the fight is over in quite literally 10 seconds. Obviously, this is intentional, but it makes the fight by far the easiest I've seen so far. Eggman doesn't take Sonic and Tails taking out his trash compactor so quickly particularly well, so he decides to man up and just try to throw them out of the airship, which would be a great way to finally be rid of his nemesis, if you ignore Tails being able to fly, and that he's got cranes handily just in the right place to pick them up as they fall, but otherwise, great plan. Act 2 gets off to a good start when I use the lightning shield to take the upper route, though it doesn't last long before a techno squeak robs me of it. The zone begins to darken after that, though it's less to do with my deteriorating mental state due to my skill issues, and more to do with the approaching storm brewing outside. After some more tomfoolery with some cluckers, the clouds do open, and rain begins to pelt the Flying Battery, giving the whole zone a very different feel to the bright and sunny skies of before. I go back inside to grab, and say it with me now, yet another electric shield. before going back outdoors and picking up some blue rings. I didn't know it at the time, but this was a huge mistake. After some more actions on propellers and back and forth between the interior and exterior, I end up picking up some speed sneakers, burst through the next door, and go so quickly I will run right past a big ring. You know what? I don't feel like explaining what happened in the rest of the act. I run across the top of the ship, I fail to complete a Blues Fist bonus stage, I get my first achievement for jumping through a window, I pass some more dancing spikes, I lose my electric shield. Let's just get on to the boss, shall we? For anyone unaware, the flying battery boss is the Spider-Mobile, and after how poorly I've done throughout this zone, let me just vent a bit before we continue. This boss is I hate it. It doesn't work properly. I wasted 6 minutes on it because it wouldn't take damage. It. Eggman. Sonic Team. I picked up Mania again because I couldn't get through the new Sonic Frontiers DC, and everyone say that's just a skill issue on my end, despite it being horribly balanced. Them too. I don't care that you've just seen evidence that supports it being me that can't play these games properly, but by this point, I'm just tired. I'm so tired, man. Yeah, alright, that was fun. And quite therapeutic, honestly. You may have sensed that I have a tiny degree of disdain for this fight, and it certainly wasn't helped by the fact that upon entering the elevator the fight takes place on for the first time, I was hit by the very first attack, and because of the blue rings I picked up earlier, every single one of my 217 rings immediately fell through the floor. I'm not going to go through all of my attempts because they're all mostly the same. I keep hitting Eggman, the Spider-Mobile hits the spikes but doesn't take any damage, I hit the spikes myself, blah blah blah. Even in the ultimately successful attempt, this actually happened even more than usual, with lots of the Spider-Mobile not being damaged by the spikes or continuing an attack phase well through the point it should have fallen back to the floor. But I survived the battle of attrition by remaining cautious and fanatically chasing the individual ring I kept dropping and needing to chase. Even after ultimately defeating the boss and waiting for the elevator to take me up, I still managed to hit the last row of spikes and lose my ring. If I had lost it earlier and I needed to do that again, that rant would have been longer and even more profane. In fact, I did so poorly that I managed to score a big fat 0 on every metric. No points for time, you took more than 8 minutes to get through the act. No points for rings, you lost them all. Do not even think about asking for a cool bonus. By this point though, I didn't really care. I was just happy to see Sonic and Tails on their paragliders heading down to Press Garden. I'll leave the video here. Thank you for watching my descent into slight insanity. The Sonic Frontiers DLC is actual dog water, do not play it, and ciao.